Hello, and thanks for watching us on Talk Local. I'm your host, Haley Zimak. World AIDS Day tomorrow, December the 1st. It's when communities around the world remember those who lost their lives and to honor those still living with the effects of HIV and AIDS. Now, it's also used to look at achievements made and the work that still lies ahead. ACWA, or the AIDS Committee of Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo area, have been holding a number of events in conjunction with Waterloo Region's HIV/AIDS Awareness Week 2011, and Sarah Manette was at the event.
This is Guy and Mary. They found love and support in each other in a time in their lives when they didn't expect to.
I've learned that I can love myself and that I can forgive. And I've also learned that there is a wonderful person for me out there in this world.
From Mary, I mean, she's my hero. Truly, I can get needy and petty about this along the way, but she makes me want to be a better man and wants to make me handle it better. Mary's virus is more complicated than mine, so she's on experimental medications, and she has a lot more of a burden with it than I do, and she's really shown me courage within myself and how to find it within someone else.
Guy and Mary met after they had both contracted HIV and have been together ever since. They spoke to a handful of Wilfrid Laurier University students to share their story in the hopes to educate others about this virus.
Tonight we have two guest speakers here from ACWA to tell us about living with HIV, and they're going to be speaking about their personal experiences, reminding us how to protect from getting this condition, and just sort of to tell us what it's like in their daily lives.
Guy and Mary share their story in the hopes that someday the stigma that surrounds HIV/AIDS will someday disappear.
If you don't put a face to HIV, the stigma won't go away. And maybe the more you talk about it, the more other people will talk about it.
I'm hoping to put a face on HIV and AIDS in the community and to show others that our lives aren't so different. That, the choices are the basic difference between us.
Emily Banks and Rochelle Hepburn were amongst their peers in the audience as Guy and Mary rehashed their stories.
The stories that these people tell are just so fantastic, and what they go through, you learn so much from them.
I came out to hear them speak because I heard about it last year from a lot of people who were involved, and I thought it would be a great way to come out and learn more information and promote the awareness, because it's definitely something that is a growing issue.
Living and Loving with HIV was one event put on by the AIDS Committee of Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo area in partnership with WLU as part of AIDS Awareness Week, a week-long campaign leading up to World AIDS Day.
Tonight is pretty much part of the World AIDS Day awareness program. We want to get everyone informed about HIV and AIDS around the world, so this is just a small-scale part of that to hopefully prevent the spread of HIV and AIDS.
Natalie Snyder, student organizer of the event, says education is key in battling the social stigma and in preventing the spread of this virus.
There's still a lot of social stigma surrounding HIV and AIDS, and it's really important to spread the word, to provide people with the correct information so they're not misinformed, and then in turn prevent the spread of HIV and AIDS around the world.
In Waterloo, I'm Sarah Manette for Talk Local.
And it's not easy sharing your story on camera or in front of a crowd, so we do truly commend Guy and Mary. They're also in studio with us tonight and will join us later on in the program. You can join our conversation as well tonight. What do you think? Have we lost our focus on the fight against HIV/AIDS? Is this something that we give enough support to, enough attention to as a community? We grow mustaches for Movember, hold Relay for Life for breast cancer, walk for MS. Does HIV and AIDS get the same amount of recognition and support? You can tweet us at TalkLocalWR, email us at talklocal@rogers.com, or give us a call, 519-893-6905. In studio, joining us now, we have ACWA community educator, HIV educator, Jody Benninger. So thank you so much for your time, Jody. We do appreciate it. So the week-long campaign overall, leading up till the final kind of vigil and another special day tomorrow, but how have things been going thus far?
We're always grateful when people come out and support our events. There's obviously always the room to have more people attend, and that's our greatest hope for future events.
Why is it important to get people out and educated? And have you also seen that number grow in the past doing events like these?
Yeah, we have. The more open doors that we can kind of walk through to start that dialogue, the better. And the reason is because there's so much misinformation out there and fear and that can actually contribute to people not wanting to know their own status. So that's why it's really critical that the proper, concise information is out there so people can make empowered decisions.
What is some of the main kind of misinformation or stereotypes, myths, whatever you want to call them, that kind of float around about this?
I think the biggest ones that I face are that it affects certain people doing certain things, and that's a myth. It affects any human being. If you choose to take risks, then you run the chance of coming into contact with HIV and other STIs, as well as how it's contracted. There's a heightened fear that it's much more easier to catch than it actually is. So once you have that information, it's easier to ground people.
Right, okay. So Aqua's mission then is to encourage, enlighten, put a kind of a face to this? I mean, a number of things, but how would you kind of briefly sum up what Aqua's mission is?
Because the epidemic is ever changing, I think we try and be at the front line to respond to our community's needs, and whether that's through prevention, education, support, however we can. So our mission is kind of framed around that.
What's your slogan this year?
The theme for World AIDS Day from the UN is getting to zero. So that is 0 new HIV infections, 0 discrimination, and 0 AIDS-related deaths. And then the Canadian AIDS Society theme is do something.
Okay. Speaking of statistics, I mean, trying to get to zero, how many people currently live with HIV and AIDS in Canada?
As of 2009, 65,000 Canadians are said to be infected with HIV or AIDS.
Do you have any regional stats?
We have an estimate. They estimate about 500 people in our region are living with the virus. However, about 30% Canadians, between 25 and 30% of Canadians are unaware of their HIV status. So that's pretty important information and a reason to really make informed decisions.
Right, and to get checked. I mean, 1/3 of people don't even know their status at all, which is a huge number. So we will continue on with this conversation. Jody's going to stay with us. We will be joined by another guest in just a moment. Brendan McCallum is standing by. He's an outreach coordinator, and he will be on right after the break. We do need to take a quick break, and we'll be back right after this. welcome back to Talk Local, and thanks for joining us tonight. We're talking about HIV/AIDS Awareness Week, which is happening locally right here in Waterloo Region and across Canada as well. So we're asking you tonight, do we pay enough attention to this? Do we give enough support, enough positive support? 519-893-6905 is our phone number. We're on Twitter at TalkLocalWR, or you can email us talklocal@rogers.com. So Jody's still in studio with us. We're also joined now by Brendan McCallum, who's an outreach coordinator with Aqua. So thank you both for your time tonight. So Brendan, just have to ask you first, so what exactly does your role as an outreach coordinator entail?
Well, what I do for the most part, I take care of our harm reduction programs, which includes our needle exchange and some of our safer sex supplies, taking those out to where people need them and where they can access them. And I go into the community a fair bit to do workshops, presentations, or I just show up and talk, and hopefully people will listen to get the message out about safer sex, depending on who the audience is, drug use, safer sex, tattoos, piercings, things like that, to help people to keep them from coming into contact with the virus, hopefully.
And Jody, before the break, you talked about, everyone can be affected, but there's things you can do, risky behavior kind of to avoid. So Brendan, just wondering, what are some of those practices that you can avoid to keep yourself safe?
Well, the big one that affects most people is safer sex, so the use of condoms, and decision making is a big one, about where and when and how and all that kind of stuff. So we try to make people aware of how HIV is transmitted through those routes, and so they can make educated decisions, and provide things like condoms so that they can follow up on those decisions. And we also educate people who are actively using drugs on particularly injection drugs, because that is a very risky behavior with regards to HIV transmission. To educate them on how to stay as safe as they can be while they're engaging in those activities, and then so hopefully that they can move on with their lives at some point and not have to worry about HIV every day.
Jody, do you speak to groups or crowds as well? What do you find are some of the, Brendan said, I talk a lot of the times, right, and really inform and educate. What kind of questions do you field? And this is for both of you, but Jody first, what are some of the main kind of issues that continuously get brought up, some of those, things that people don't know and are more apt to ask?
A lot of people aren't aware of the stigma. They assume people are more accepting. It is 2011, and that is an assumption. Some people are, some aren't. As well as the way that it's contracted and the ways that it isn't. That's always a big surprise to people in the audience with their own assumptions and just a lack of information.
And Brendan, do you find the same type of things get brought up and
Yes.
that misinformation that's out there?
A lot of very similar myths that are around about particularly how it's spread and how easy it is to get. But I also find that people are often surprised that we're talking about it here, because people don't assume that or don't think that it's happening particularly in Waterloo Region, when in fact it very much is. As Jody stated earlier, there's
500
a fair
people,
number of
right?
people. So a lot of people are very surprised at that fact, that it's something that we need to be worried about.
Yeah. So how important, and Jody mentioned as well, 1/3 of Canadians don't know their status, right? So whether positive, negative, whatever way it kind of goes. So how important is it, and if you're anyone and everyone, to get checked, right? This does not just kind of apply to one type of person.
No, I usually, when I'm doing workshops, I usually try to encourage everyone to get checked at least once, and then you know where you stand right now, and moving forward you can make decisions based on the information that you've learned, because I may not have had all the information in the past and may or may not have done things. So if I get tested today, I can move forward and know my status and make decisions based on that are going to be good for my health and the health of people that are around me as well.
Why are people so surprised, either or? Jody, we can start with you. When 500 people, I mean, that's a lot of people. Why are they so surprised it happens here? Is there just that?
I think the media might play a role in that, with the focus being on it being in sub-Saharan Africa, where it is hitting hardest.